Let's look into Europe. We've got the EU Parliament having a ballot. We've got, obviously, a new party with Nigel Farage. There's been milkshakes thrown, there's been eggs thrown, there's been all the usual shenanigans that you're seeing at the moment when you have a contested ballot between the left and the right. But he's doing very well. People like Dan Hannan say it could be an annihilation of the Tory vote inside Britain. Where do you see it all going?
Well, I think that's right. I was thrilled when Theresa May became Prime Minister, but I've never seen a Prime Minister, Labor or Liberal, or, you know, left or right, in any country that I follow who has just made a bigger mess of everything than her. And the Tories will be after a third term next time, and I think Morrison's win will embolden them to go to Boris Johnson because they need a big personality full of life and beans. The polls, now we know the polls are inadequate and inexact and so on, but for what they're worth, they're putting Farage's party, the Brexit party, at a staggering 35% for the EU election. Second place is contested between the Liberal Democrats and Labor. Labor could well come third, but they're both miles behind Brexit. The Greens could outpoll the Tories, who could come fifth. They could get 8 or 9%. Now, this is existential panic time. European elections are different from national elections, that's quite right. But they are seriously contemplating what happened to the Canadian Progressive Conservatives in the early 90s, you know, where they went from being in government to having 2 seats. I think, you know, Theresa May reminds me of the sort of the princess of the Walking Dead in Game of Thrones. I mean, she's very hard to kill, but she's not actually alive. But I think this time she will meet her Waterloo as a political leader. Whether she sets a timetable or whether she just goes, I can't see any benefit in having her stay for Britain or for the Conservative Party.
Look, she's had another resignation overnight. The 1922 committee, this is the committee for people at home that can topple her. They are meeting. They need a rule change because they not so long ago had a no confidence vote. I'm told she's meeting with the chairman tomorrow. It's a case of will she go willingly? Will they try and blast her out? But, of course, the result of a collapse in the Tory vote in the UK parliamentary sense, in the UK election sense, could be a Jeremy Corbyn victory. Now, I've mentioned this before on the show, but to get a congratulatory letter from Hamas to you as a leader in a Western country says a hell of a lot about the danger you present to the democracy of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, just as I think Theresa May is the worst British Prime Minister I've seen in my lifetime, Jeremy Corbyn is surely the most outlandish and extremist leader of any major Western party in modern times. Jeremy Corbyn has spent his life consorting with terrorists and anti-Semites and extreme leftists. He supported Hugo Chavez in Venezuela always. He supported Hamas. He spoke at Hamas functions. He described Hamas as his friends. He was unhappy with the Good Friday Agreement because he thought the IRA had caved in. He was friends with the IRA when they were murderous terrorists, and he organised functions for them in the House of Commons. Now, the fact that any kind of rank-and-file ballot could elect someone like him is a very disturbing sign about who voted in that rank-and-file ballot. He is the only reason that the Tories have the slightest chance of winning next time. But even an opponent as bad as that will not save you if you are in total, absolute chaos. Theresa May now has got to the stage where she offers nothing. No. There is no way forward. All that she is doing is clinging desperately to office. I think we read the same article where it says she's locked in her office, she's pushed the sofa against the door, she's locked all the windows, and they're going to have to blast her out. And, you know, there is no way that it is for the good of her party or her nation to stay on. Now, Brexit might end up being a no-deal Brexit, which I think would be manageable if you're prepared for it.
I've been arguing that all the way along. And the big calamity, I think, the big fall in the civil service in the United Kingdom is they did not properly plan for a no Brexit option. Now, whether that's she didn't instruct them, but if you read her Lancaster House speech from a couple of years ago, it was clear that that wasn't optional. She claimed it was at the time, but I think they've all had a great derogation of duty that they haven't put that on the table.
Yeah, she's an astonishingly incompetent Prime Minister. The Lancaster House speech was absolutely clear. No deal is better than a bad deal.
Correct.
So to get a good deal, you have to say to the other side, but if you can't give us a good deal, We will remain your friend, but we will walk away with no deal, which doesn't mean chaos.
You have to have that threat of walking away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're a complete patsy to what Brussels is going to give you there as your final agreement. And we know with that latest vote, Greg, this is the fourth ballot that she's trying to take through to the Parliament. There is a requirement in there for a second referendum. Now, that's the end of democracy if we go down that path.
The requirement is that you can vote. They get to vote on a second referendum. But you're right. It's tremendously anti-democratic. No deal need not mean chaos. No deal simply means you trade on World Trade Organisation rules. And as long as you had, as do we. So as long as you had 6 months to prepare for it, it should be perfectly okay. On the other hand, although I'm an ardent Brexiteer, I would rather they actually stay in the EU than accept the mad deal that she has put together.
Yeah, I agree with you, because, I mean, it's got all the worst. It's still got the customs trading components in it, but it's got all the worst of the European court system imposing a sort of a social agenda on Britain. It doesn't give Britain its autonomy, and it's certainly not what people voted for.